What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tesla Fix. My name is Jan, and today we have an episode which I'm pretty thrilled to do right now because it's interesting. Tesla cut prices like crazy. The Model X is now ready for the incentive in the US. That's a huge deal, actually. And the Model 3 reveal, of course, we're going to talk about that as well. And of course, we gotta have to talk a little bit about the competition and the overall strategy of Tesla. And that's why I have a special guest here. You might know him after the intro. We're going to see who it is. Let's jump right in.
Welcome to Tesla Fix. Make sure to subscribe and like this episode.
Farzad, how are you doing? Surprise, surprise, Farzad is here. And as always, I'm pretty stoked to have you on the channel again. So Farzad, yeah, how are you doing? How is everything? And maybe you can tell us what you do right now, and then we're going to start the episode.
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me again. It's always a pleasure talking with you. It's great seeing your channel growing the way it has. You deserve all the success that comes your way. I remember we started talking like almost 2 years now, like a year and a half ago or something like that.
It's something like that. I think it was a year or over. Yeah, it could be 2 years right now. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah,
close to.
Crazy. And congratulations on having Elon Musk doing your intro. Fantastic.
Yeah,
it's not fake at all. It's so clearly him.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it was pretty tough to get him on, but yeah, you know, Elon, he's a fun guy. He does stuff like this sometimes.
He has a lot of time for this stuff.
Yeah, sure. Of course. I mean, running Twitter, that's a joke, actually.
Nothing.
And Tesla, he's not even active there anymore. You know that.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so far that again, so many things happened with Tesla, and yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we gotta talk about the biggest news right now, and I think it's important to look at it. Maybe we start with a small clip that I brought with you here today, which I published already. My viewers already know that, but I think it's a good introduction to the new Model 3 release, and I think that's the best segue to go to the price reductions, because I think everything is tied together there. So let's see how this clip.
Wait, is that a real picture?
Oh, that's is that true? Full.
You know, is that actually happened?
Of course it happened. I think this is a reflection of how just
Oh my God!
dark we've become.
Oh my God! You know what? Is that actually happened?
Of course it happened.
So yeah,
who made that video? Was that you?
Okay. Yeah, I edited it. So it was a car review, and I've edited it and put everything together. It took me a long time, but actually it was like this. In Germany, the time shift is pretty different. So I've seen that this was my reaction to the Model 3 Highland. I was like, wait, it happens now? And it was late at night already in Germany. And I'm like, oh God. Before that, we had some rumor pictures again, like from Shanghai. Yeah. And I thought like, this might be a rendering, but it wasn't a rendering. It was an actual picture. And then I started to, right away, went to the computer, started to put everything up because the car reviews came in, and I was like, okay, let's do it, and just uploaded it, and I didn't sleep that night. Yeah, actually.
Dude, that's such a great edit. Great job.
Thanks.
I very well done. You Germans and your EDM is always so good, man. I don't know, you guys just got it all figured out. I had my freaking head bopping there. That seemed like a Tesla commercial almost. Yeah, it's pretty sick, man. Good job with that. I'm impressed.
Thanks. Thanks. And I thought about this meme review thing that Elon did a few years ago with the PewDiePie thing that was going on YouTube. And I was like, yeah, that's the reaction I have to put in there because everybody was like, what? It actually happened now? So yeah, the Model 3 happened like we saw. I think this video is important for afterwards when we compare it maybe to the Mercedes thing I have brought with you from the IAA in Munich. But Farzad, how about we talk a little bit about the Model 3 refresh, because I think it's such an important milestone. What do you think about the refresh?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that has been rumored for a long time, as you said. It's something that a lot of people were expecting at some point, because you think about the Model 3 when it first came out. This thing, the original Model 3, has been out since 2016, 2017-ish. So it was due for some sort of refresh look, kind of how the Model S and the X have gone through that a little bit. Not nearly as much as the Model 3 did. I think the Model 3, actually the outside got significantly more changes from a look perspective than the S or the X have. When you think about the newer versions, they have a bigger sort of air intake thing in the fascia. Some of the panels are a little bit more curvy, a little bit more sporty. The stance has changed a little bit. But the Model 3 to me just looks significantly different. In my opinion, significantly better, especially from some angles. I think the headlight change is great. The backlight looks amazing on the new car, in my opinion. That is such a sleek, great design. That's the previous one. The new one looks so much sharper, so much more modern. But overall, I think it lines up exactly with where I expected the refresh to be, which is a little bit more upmarket, a little bit more luxurious, taking advantage of all the learnings that Tesla has learned for the past few years as they ramped Model 3, as they introduced Model Y. All those things should be included in this car. A few of those things, at least, we see with the screen in the rear passenger seats, some of the trimmings and all that other stuff that they've put in. The steering wheel without a stalk, that's an SNX thing, right?
Yeah.
Some sort of improved casting for the front and the rear. I don't think they're actually single piece yet, but they have implemented some sort of changes to those two. There's still a lot of, the jury's still out, but it does seem like it's not going to be as streamlined as the Model Y. But you also have to remember that the Model 3 production line is a legacy line from 2016, especially in Fremont. That's going to be tough to rip apart. So, and that's probably why we haven't heard that the Model 3 Highland has, or refresh, whatever you want to call it, has made it here. So, but I think the more important signal here from this refresh is that we're getting really good indication as to how Tesla's thinking about its compact car, its next car that's coming down. So the Model 3 before this refresh, and still with this refresh, it was still your best bang for your buck from a range perspective. As far as ensuring that you get the most range for dollar spent. That's still the case. But with their move of making it a little bit more premium, a little bit more luxurious, changing the suspension to feel more premium, as you've seen from all the, people may have seen it from the different car reviews and whatnot. Now this opens up this door for the compact car to come in and really go down market, because now the Model 3 has true differentiation between the Model Y and what this compact car should be once it's released in the next couple of years. So it's great. I mean, it's exactly where I expected them to go. I'm very happy that the car looks and is what it is. And yeah, it's going to be exciting next couple of years as Tesla gets this thing out in the market and starts selling it. How do you feel about this thing?
I mean, gosh, I was so tremendously hyped before the release, and I was like, God damn it, I know the Cybertruck won't come early to Germany, at least. If anyway it comes, but I assume it will come. For me, it doesn't make sense because they've changed so much now. They reduced the size of the Cybertruck. They've reduced the curve, or they increased the curvature of the front, for example. They shortened the front a little bit. And I think for pedestrian, and they produced it more traditionally than we thought. Before we thought they had an exoskeleton.
It seems like that.
It still seems like they changed that a bit. But still it's pretty near the actual design they did before. So that's why I was so hyped for the Model 3. And when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna order one right away. But then suddenly, after consideration and after the hype, and I was thinking clearly again, I was like, why should I own the car when I can own the company again more? So for me, taking out a huge loan to get this thing, I mean, okay, for content, this would be awesome. I could have it here. I could shoot some stuff for you guys and everything. But because Europe and China is earlier and Australia is earlier with the Model 3, of course. But I thought, okay, we had pretty thorough car reviews right now. I can lend some footage there and everything. So I don't know. I wish I could do it. I still don't own a Tesla right now. That's pretty sad. But I have to wait. I think it's more important to. I mean, a $500 car payment per month could be three stocks, maybe two stocks, maybe depending on the share price. So 2 stocks per month, it seems to me like a better investment than in a car that could be sold for profit even, but still, I think this would be a better solution right now. So I was holding my horses.
So you're smart.
And if the Cybertruck will be released in Europe, I'm gonna absolutely get the Cybertruck because this is not as mass market as the Model 3 right now. And that's why I think, at least in Germany, to get it here, I think it's very complicated. That's why the Cybertruck will be better for renting out. That's my business thing. I try to do here, because I know I'm from the music industry as well. I did some videos and shooting videos and from advertising, and I know that all the rappers gonna rent this thing out for $1,000 a day, of course, and that's why I'm still waiting. But yeah, so this was my decision. But I think it's a stunning car. I think they did such a great job actually doing this thing. I mean, they learned so much from the other cars, and that's my speculation. I don't know how you see it, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I think it reminds me of a certain car that's not released right now, pretty much also from the design perspective, and I'm talking about the Roadster. And I think this thing is a stepping stone for the Roadster, maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if the wheelbase is similar and stuff like this. That's something but that's speculation territory. Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I do think that the Roadster will take advantage of some of the latest manufacturing techniques, but maybe not too, because it is such an expensive car, and the cost to manufacture, it's going to be such a low volume car. It's going to be very low in Tesla's priority list. So, but I would expect it to still use the latest technology. So the Model 3 wheelbase, they might use the same wheelbase, but the way they'll put the wheelbase together is going to be very different,
course. And
I would think.
I would also say the Roadster might be a little bit broader and stuff like this.
Wider, for sure.
But it's cool that they have a new design language that they try to put into the cars, and it's totally the headlights. And I think the Model Y will be updated someday. I don't know. There's already the project. I'm blanking out on the name. Tesla,
for the Juniper or something.
Juniper, yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
So Model Y Juniper. Let's see what that means. Let's see.
Well, I think we know what it means.
Okay, then tell us. Farzad.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. I think when Model Y gets refreshed, which I still wouldn't expect it to happen, probably until late next year into 2025, if I were to guess. They'll have a headlight refresh. They'll put the screen in the back seat, probably. But it's a ways away. It's very obviously a ways away, and I think the refresh will probably not be as drastic as the 3 in some respects, especially from a cost perspective, because the Model Y is already, it has the front and rear castings. It has a structural battery pack. In some configurations, it has the 4680. These are the things that the battery modules is what I'm talking about here when I say 4680. For those that might not be familiar, so it's not going to have as big as a fundamental shift under its body as the 3 did, but the look will be different. I would expect the interior to be very similar. I would expect the headlights to be similar, because Tesla saves a ton of money on these headlights and all these pieces if they can really ramp up how many of them they can order every time that when they order for the year. So if you can get headlights for 2 million cars versus 1 million cars, you can very much sit with the supplier and hash out a deal that's to Tesla's advantage, while you say, hey, if I order an additional million headlights from you, I would expect a 10% decrease or a 15% decrease in pricing. And the supplier is more willing to do that because they know they're going to get an additional million units worth of cars headlights, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they'll do with the Y. And that's going to help the Model 3 costs as well, because when the Model Y starts bringing in some of those pieces that the Model 3 is using, then the Model 3 costs go down because you're ordering those pieces in higher volume, which means that 10-15% discount, hypothetically, whatever that is, will also apply for the Model 3 headlights as an example. And for the rear screen, that's gonna, whatever savings you get there, it applies to the S, the X, and the 3 and the Y. This is where Tesla's going to start leveraging its muscles as a manufacturer, and having a sort of really leveraging the savings that could be in the supply chain. And it's in their best interest to have these pieces available across the entire all the models that they have, which is something the Monroe team has been talking about quite a bit in the past.
Yeah, that's true. So everybody check out the recent Monroe clips, and also follow Sandy Monroe here. That's a good tip right now, because they do great stuff and analyze, and of course they're gonna tear everything apart, which will be very interesting, especially with the Model 3. Then
that Highland turnout is going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And Farzad, how do you feel like the Model 3 is now in the price bracketing of Tesla now, with every car in place, or every strategy here in place? I mean, what happened? Do we still have a demand problem because the new Model 3 costs more than before? What is happening there? Because Tesla increased prices actually from the refresh now, and it makes sense. The demand is high, right? So everybody and their grandma want to buy it, even people who can't afford it, actually. So I think it's going to be a bestseller. And increasing prices makes sense, especially with a new model. What's your view on this price increase?
I mean, I think it's what I expected. It's going to create that separation between the Y, the 3, and the compact car. I think where the Model 3, I think, suffered from, let's say, a demand perspective, because I do think the Model 3 relative to the Model Y was at a disadvantage, was because the features you could get in a Model 3, in a Model Y rather, versus a Model 3, you just got so much more car for the money. And now with the Model 3, with the additional features it has, how it rides, how it handles, the interior, you could start creating a little bit more separation between the models, and ask for a pricing, command a higher price, especially when you put it up against the other EVs, right? And this is where the pricing strategy really should be looked at, is now that there's separation between the 3 and the Y, much more than there was before. Now you can say, okay, what does Model 3 Highland refresh, whatever you want to call it, look like versus every other, call it mid-size sedan, I guess we'll call it, kind of like compact-ish, but not really. It's like, we'll call it it's definitely in Europe is mid-size sedan, I would say, versus the rest of the mid-size sedans in the United States, especially. And you can see that there's a huge gap, especially for the long-range Model 3s. And so asking for a higher price is not really going to impact their ability to command a lot of demand, because the other mid-size sedans that are in that price bracket of around $40,000 US before the tax credit here in the US, there's really nobody else that can get nearly as close to the range that Tesla offers, plus the supercharger network, plus the self-driving feature, the safety, you go down the path. And so it becomes Tesla's playing on it by itself in that price bracket. So they can do whatever they want. The biggest problem, again, was it had to go up against the Model Y. And the Model Y is the best-selling car in the world. So now that they've created a separation between the Model Y and the Model 3, now the Model 3 can play against everybody else. And from that perspective, it should win, and win big. And I think we'll see that very, very soon with the numbers coming in, and once these orders materialize. It looks obvious from a pricing perspective.
Yeah. Do you think Tesla will go lower again? To where do you think the pricing will sit in the long run? So in Europe at least, or in Germany, the prices were the Model 3 prices rose a bit, like around I think 2,000 euros or something. The prices were rising for the Model 3, but where do you think it will sit? Because we have the $25,000 compact cars soon, and then we're gonna have the Model 3 and then the Model Y. So where do you think the pricing will be comfortable for Tesla when everything is like the first wave of customers settled in? And how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to guess because pricing is dictated purely by supply and demand, right? So so if the demand for the car is more than the Tesla can supply, then especially when as they're thinking about their where they need to be from a RAM perspective, then prices will go up. If it's the opposite, prices will go down. I think the other variable is the global economy and how it's sort of like it's like yawing. It's going back and forth as different economies are hitting recession, not recession, as interest rates climb in some areas, go down in other areas. It's very unstable. The macroeconomic environment is very unstable, and interest rates heavily dictate. We can see it very clearly in the data. Heavily dictate the affordability of vehicles, and so the question becomes: will there be enough people that are willing to buy a Model 3 given the macroeconomic environments globally? And if there are, then prices will either remain steady or go up. And if there aren't, prices will go down. Or in the other side, on the supply side, if Tesla can dramatically increase their output of the Model 3 and create a lot more supply of cars, meaning that they can build more cars than what the world is demanding at that price, then the prices will come down, right? So my guess is going into next year, you have Berlin and Austin ramping up. Right now, Model 3 is really built out of Fremont and Shanghai. So unless they decide to put in another line in, say, Berlin or Austin, that's for this Highland, which maybe they could start thinking about now that they have more pieces that are interchangeable, one would think, between the Y and the 3. Maybe not with Highland, but once they refresh Y, probably, then it would make sense for Model 3 to have more supply. And that's what I would expect to happen. So if you fast forward into Model Y getting refreshed, and then you have more commonality between Model 3 refresh and the Model Y refresh, say by 2025-ish, which is when the compact car should start becoming a reality, then that means places like Berlin and Austin, in theory, if there's enough demand for a mid-size sedan electric vehicle somewhere around the $35,000 to $40,000 price bracket, then it would probably make sense for Tesla to increase supply by introducing another line or two somewhere in the world. But it's going to be heavily dictated by what people want. Like, do people really want a mid-size sedan, or do they want a mid-size SUV and a compact car? Because to me, like, I have a hard time understanding. You know, like, me as a shopper, the sedan form factor gives me way better driving dynamics, and maybe this is from a U.S. buyer's perspective. I don't understand why anybody would buy a sedan unless you're looking to use it as a performance vehicle, because SUVs and sedans have very different driving dynamics. Like the Camry versus a I don't know, a RAV4 as an example. Why would the Camry gets sold a lot, but like for me, it's like hard to understand that sedan becoming a big portion of the market long term, as that SUV form factor is clearly a superior form factor, bang for your buck type thing, because you can get a lot more space for about the same money. And an EV, the amount of you would pay in, say, fuel versus the sedan and the SUV is not drastically different, because EVs are so much cheaper to run versus sedans. Whereas in the past, a gas SUV versus a sedan SUV, you actually have some significant differences in gas mileage, because the form factor and the weight of the SUV would dramatically impact your miles per gallon. And your miles per gallon, if you change it by say 10 to 20%, that could mean somebody being able to or not being able to afford an SUV versus a sedan because the fuel prices would be so much higher. So that equation kind of breaks with an EV. So we'll see. That was a very long-winded answer to your question, but it's
No,
sort of,
it's
that's the kind
interesting.
of that's the kind of variability that goes into it. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Because I think this discussion about the sedans is pretty interesting also for the European market, especially for the German market as well. Because what you have to see is it depends on the pricing. If Tesla can really arrange, that's why I'm asking so thoroughly about the pricing. If Tesla can arrange the price somewhere around 30,000, 32,000 US dollars, and I think with their margins and their headroom that they have now with the newer improved production, I think, and especially with ramping up production of the Model 3, I think they can get the price down to a lower level. And if they manage to do this, the ID3 is gone. The rest of the VW Golf, for example, is a very popular car here in Europe and Germany as well. It's a hatchback car, pretty compact as well. Not as small as a really, really compact car. So it's also more in the midsize area there.
Can I throw something there though?
Mm-hmm.
Can I throw something there? That's what the compact car is for. So the ID3, the Golf, that's the compact car.
Okay, I know, but we also have those. For example, the BMW 3 Series was a very popular series also in Europe. It's also not a hatchback. It has just a trunk in the back and everything, a normal trunk without the windows going up in the back.
Saloon.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also very sporty. And I think there is a target audience, a target group that will buy this middle segment. And of course, the compact is tackling those smaller cars, and I think it makes sense. But I think there is also, a huge market for the Model 3, but it will also cannibalize some sales of maybe the the smaller car of Tesla that they're going to produce, the compact, the Tesla compact, and the Model Y sales as well, maybe because it's so near in the middle. But Germans also love the sportiness of those cars as well. Sure. And I think the Model 3 with everything low center of gravity and everything, I think it's gonna be also, could be a really much a hit. And also for the transition to the compact, I think I think that's also possible to have something there to please the customer until the compact car is here. Yeah. So one question, what do you think, because you talked about Berlin for there a little bit, what indications do you have? What do you think the expansion is about? Is it just about Model Y, or will we see something more than that in Germany? Yeah. Maybe they prepare for the compact car line, which they're going to build in Mexico, but maybe they push that out to Germany as well. Who knows?
That's a good question. I mean, who knows? It could be that expansion could be for anything. It could be for more Model Y. It could be for more Highland. It could be for more compact car. It's definitely not for Cybertruck, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Oh, don't say that.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, Cybertruck's going to have to be imported from the US, at least for the time being.
Yeah.
But if I were to guess, it's probably either Model Y or Highland, or a Model 3 refresh. One of those two.
Okay.
Maybe even for Model Y refresh, because by the time they have
that's true,
the factory line up, it could just be it would be
so
ready to
they can transition. Yeah,
exactly.
Makes
and
sense.
they can just rejigger something, the existing line in Berlin, and then switch it over to the refresh for Y while the new line is cranking out Model Ys. It's all these moves that Tesla's doing. This is when people are like shaking their heads about, Tesla's not going to get to 20 million cars by 2030. I'm like, yeah, but like every step that they're taking right now with all these expansions are directly in line with that. But the true game-changing thing here is going to be once they figure out how to crank out more cars per square foot than they do right now with that Gen 3 platform, which is their compact car and potentially the van that they had under the cover. So during Investor Day. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what that is. But my gut tells me Model Y in Berlin.
This also makes sense because then they just can switch the line. They have the way modern line there, and they can have a seamless transition to the new line, and then change the existing line from before to the new concept.
They
or
will
something.
limit downtime dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a pretty interesting point you did here. Yeah, and I'm gonna share a picture here of the price reductions because I think this also is again pretty much a game changer that's happening here, because you've seen the start of the year, the Model S and X, sad for the people that bought it there, and then half a year later, that really sucks. Of course, that's not cool for the customers, but at some point you have to do it, and I think for the overall long-term plan, it makes sense. Of course, this is absolutely negative for the buyers that bought prior to this year, because you buy something and then when you want to sell it, you cannot sell it for $20,000 less. For example, here the Model X, you have to sell it for at least less than a new one. So that's pretty hard. But Tesla also rose prices before. That's something you have to keep in mind as well. So people always cry about the changes, of course, because it's pretty emotional when you buy a pretty expensive car, of course. When something like this happens. But I mean, now, maybe you can tell the audience what happened now, because due to the price reductions, we have pretty good news for the American buyers, of course. And that's, maybe you can talk about this, what I'm hinting at.
There is a Model Z that's coming. I'm kidding. I don't know. I'm just making shit up now. So with the Model X being $79,990, that means that it's under the $80,000 federal EV tax credit threshold that some U.S. cars, some cars in the U.S. can be eligible for, as long as they meet certain requirements around where they manufacture the batteries, and also based on income thresholds for the buyer. So for many people, what this means is that they can buy a Model X with the EV tax credit for under $73,000, so $72,500, and in places like Colorado, which is a state in the United States.
That's absolutely crazy. Yeah.
They have an additional $5,000 state incentive.
That's so insane.
You can buy a Model X for $67,500. Yeah, it's insane.
Oh, that's so crazy. Yeah. That's absolutely crazy. When I heard these news, I was so jealous, because Europe was always the continent which had the best incentives for a long time, but then the US came with the plan. I think we have to thank the government here at one point. But we all know the president needs just a blanket and a warm soup at this point. But still, this is pretty cool for the EV buyers, and I think this will push the transition to EVs in the US, especially because we have to do a little bit more, or they have to do more groundwork a bit. But I think, this will, I mean, especially in Colorado, I mean, this is absolutely insane.
That state's going to look like baby Norway, you know? Actually, what's the population of Norway? How big is Norway?
I'm going to check.
2 million people, something like that? 1 million people?
Wait.
As you check. Well, the reason why I say this is Norway
5.4.
is one of the 5.4 million. Wow, I'm severely misunderestimated. Colorado, I think it's close to 800,000 people. I think, if I remember correctly, 500,000 to 800,000 people. I have like a ChatGPT at disposal. How much? Colorado?
Colorado is 5.8 million.
What the hell am I? Oh, I'm thinking of like Wyoming or something. Okay,
Utah has 3 million. Sorry, Utah has around 3.3 million. Then Colorado has 5.8, and Arizona has 7.2. Yeah,
I'm thinking of like Wyoming or something. Yeah.
Okay.
So, which makes sense because they have Denver, Boulder, all these other cities too. So
Norway, little Norway, absolutely on point. Yeah,
basically Norway. I mean, it's basically Norway.
It is basically.
Yeah, because it's cold. They have the mountains, they have gorgeous. They just don't have the oceans. So the thing about Colorado is, now with these incentives, is I bet you in about 2 years' time, you're going to go to places like Denver and Boulder and these other cities, and it's going to be a lot of Model Ys and Model Xs, because they get a ton of snow up there. People love to go off-roading and going into nature. So you need an SUV type vehicle, and the Model X and Model Y should be they're probably going to be, if I were to guess, in 2 years time, the number 1 and number 2 best selling cars in Colorado are probably going to be the Model Y and the Model X.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to guess,
Mm-hmm.
and Model X is going to be up there because it's still quite expensive at $67,500 with the tax credits, but the Model Y for sure,
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
a long time coming. So it's fun. It's super fun. It's great for EV adoption. It's great for EV adoption rather. And the bigger question becomes with the Model X is like, is there a signal from a cost perspective that says, hey, Tesla's ability to bring down costs for the year has been very successful, which is what's allowing them to drop the Model X price so low? Or are they really suffering from a demand hit for the S and the X because of the type of buyer that would typically buy that car? And is that directly linked to some of the, say, political rhetoric that Elon's been about for the last year or so since he bought X and Twitter? Because, you think about the, people are more than free to disagree with me or, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below. But I think the Model X and S buyer is much more, it's a type of buyer traditionally that is a lot more socially conscious, let's say, that they have time to sit down and think about the worldview. And I wonder how many of those buyers are able to make it a buying decision based on where their moral compass is versus where they perceive Elon's moral compass is. And I wonder if some of these price decreases are directly correlated to maybe a hit from that perspective. Just, because when you think about the traditional Model X buyer. But ultimately, I think if there is any impact from that, from some of the rhetoric, like people were talking about brand damage for Tesla. If there is any, it would probably show up in those 2 models, which is maybe why that the pricing is where it is now. But then you compare it to the rest of the lineup. I mean, the Model Y went from 60 some odd thousand to 40 some odd thousand. So the percentage drops are pretty similar. So I'm just throwing that out there because it's a variable that gets brought up sometimes, that when people are to say, hey, Elon shouldn't be saying what he's saying because it's going to alienate buyers. Like, well, if that's the case, then that's where it would show up. But if Tesla's just able to drop the price and still keep the margin for those vehicles above the average margin they have for the business, then that's going to be positive for the business regardless. So it's like, okay, he pissed off some people that will never buy a Tesla, a Model S or a Model X again. Okay, great. Is that 10% of the buyers, or is that 1% of the buyers, or is that 0.1% of the buyers? And my guess it's very small. And whatever loss of customers they may have for those segments, they've more than made up on the other side with people that would have never thought about a Tesla that are now like, oh, I kind of like what he's saying. Let me take a look.
Yeah, interesting perspective. I think something to think about here. Maybe you guys, if the viewer here, can write something down in the comments below if you agree with Farzad here, or if you think, this is a wild theory. Maybe it's just because of the incentives. I don't know. Maybe you have an opinion on this. I would pretty much appreciate it if you share with us your thoughts. Always, I love the discussions. I'm very active in my comment section still, because my channel is still a little bit manageable, you could say. Let's say it this way.
I've long, unfortunately, with my channel, it's getting
of
very
course.
difficult.
Yeah, of course.
I still try,
of course.
but it's getting very difficult.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty interesting. But do you think I've heard that you've thought about this? I think it was on X that you talked about maybe they will get rid of X or S. Could they get rid of X or S? Or somewhere I read this. I'm not sure if it was you, but
yeah. It was I made posted an article yesterday. What I like about the new X thing, the Twitter X thing, is that with these long form, like now you can do more than 280 characters. You can do you freaking write an article. Yeah. It's a great way for me to like sit down and put some thoughts to paper, get it out there, see what people's feedback is. And it gives me a ton of idea for content, because it's like,
totally. Absolutely.
Here's how I think, and
that's
then people
scripting.
are like,
absolutely.
It's fantastic. It's super helpful for that. And I'm very grateful that I'm able to do that, because it's such a powerful tool for content creation. But anyway, the hypothesis I have is, as Tesla gets into the Gen 3 platform, which is going to allow them to say 2 to 5x the amount of cars that can push through the same square footage of a factory, right? Because with a compact car and whatever those, whatever that means from a technology perspective, instead of building 1 million cars per, say, 5 million square feet, they're going to be able to build 3 to 5 million cars per 5 million square feet because they made it a lot more dense, right? When you have self-driving, what self-driving is going to enable a car to do is to generate a lot of money over the life of the vehicle. So instead of building a, say, Model S or a Model X today that might make Tesla, I don't know, if it's 30% margin on $80,000, that's 10, 20, 30, $24,000 in margin, right? You can either make $24,000 in margin in one car, or you can make potentially $60,000 to $100,000 in margin over the life of the vehicle with the car being added to the robotaxi network. And so people will say, well, yeah, you can do that right now with the S and X. You can just enable it for self-driving, and then you'll be able to make that on the car. Like that's great. But then you also have to keep in mind that for the footprint of the factory that you have where you're making those cars, the amount of money you can make from building 100 to 200,000 S and X's that make you $100,000 per car over the life of the vehicle versus 5 million cars that can make you that money. From a business perspective, the question becomes, why would you build an S and X when you can build like almost call it 10 to 15x more cars through the same footprint that would generate the same or similar profit over the life of the vehicle. So the net dollars in profit you can get from that line is so much greater. And so through that lens, if I'm purely looking at it from a business perspective, the S and X makes zero sense, especially in a world where majority of the people will allow the car to drive themselves, will drive them around, or they have a robotaxi network or something. So this is just a thought experiment. I really posted it as a thought experiment because it really begs the question, what will happen to the roads once we go to a self-driving future? Everything changes. Like the equation of what it means to build a car completely gets turned on its head. Like nothing makes sense anymore from a traditional car building perspective. And so from Tesla's current lineup, then the S and X become just literally, I think Elon, I read it on some of the comments that people posted on that article. You know, he did say that the S and X are more like, we're doing it because for sentimental reasons, because you know we care about the S and X, because it could very easily go into Fremont. They could knock down the lines. They could rebuild them for the 3 and the Y, and they can make way more money selling 3 and Ys, right? So it's just a fascinating thought experiment.
I also would be very, very sad if they got rid of the S and X, because I think it's a important car category to drag around. Let's just say that maybe even if the sales are down someday even more, we don't really know because we don't have insight into the numbers, in the actual numbers, or why Tesla did it. Or if it just was for the incentive, it could be just to increase. Of course, they want to increase sales when they do something like this. But I think it makes sense to have it more in this comfortable position, because everybody else is targeting the luxury segment more or less, because they are right now at the master plan part 2 somewhere there, which Elon announced like 2007 or something. They just still try to make this luxury vehicles in low quantities to get to the more like the mass production. But many German OEMs at least, part 1, of course. And
how dare you?
Sorry, no hate comments, please. Biesel, don't be angry at me. So but I think those categories are also important, because when Tesla starts to, I think they have to leave the line, and maybe they have to even take into consideration that this could make a loss at some point, even, because when they are in the mass market, in the mass production, and stronger than VW in that segment, and then they can go back to the luxury segment more with those two cars, and then just really go into the detail, make the refresh maybe, and together with the Roadster and everything in that category, maybe they have this broad lineup of cars that VW also has. They also try to do a luxury kind of with the I'm blanking out on the name. It's something with A. Arteon or Artheon.
Archimoto?
No, VW. No, VW. They had a Mercedes competitor model that was more luxurious.
The Phaeton?
It flopped. Actually, but
I think it was called the Phaeton in the US.
Phaeton. Yeah. Phaeton. Yeah, the Phaeton. It kind of flopped here because that's not VW. Yeah. Okay, good to know. Yeah, but still, I think they can really should have it as something in the backhand where they can like try to do the luxury segment, try to or get a standing into this luxury segment. But they don't actually need the luxury segment. It's a pretty difficult stance. I don't really know. So I shouldn't start scrambling around now. But
I think it's important to keep in mind that because you're kind of talking about like Tesla should have a halo product, right? They should have a product that really inspires people. Be like, holy crap, that's crazy.
Yeah,
right?
with the Falcon wing doors, for example, that was a good move to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what happens when they have Roadster and Cybertruck?
What's
the purpose of SNX? Right. They could just have 4. They could have 4 Halo products. It could be like, hey, SNX is our like baller, sort of like if you want to like just be like the most luxurious or like feel like you own the world kind of thing. Cybertruck is like you just want to look like the biggest badass in the world. Roadster is if you want to go to the moon, if you just want to just shoot up in the air and go to Mars. And then and so they could just inspire people through that lineup. I mean, I do agree with you. I do agree with you that it is, like businesses shouldn't always do things 100% because it makes business sense. There should be some sort of things that are maybe not doesn't follow MBA theses, let's say, where you could make way more money per square foot if you discontinue the S and the X and you put in the Gen 3 line instead. Yeah, of course, you can make so much more money. But I think the overarching premise of, hey, Tesla should still have models that inspire people is important. And it's worked traditionally for the auto market. But again, it's very important to also keep in mind that in about 5 to 10 years' time, the lens at which we view the auto market will change once self-driving is available.
Absolutely.
So will those things be nearly as important as say my car can take me to the bar with my wife from my house to the bar, to the movies, to dinner, and I never have to worry about driving. I'm not going to get pulled over for a DUI, and we have the car all to ourselves. So your imagination runs wild, right? With that thought in mind. So it's like, okay, maybe that's the new luxury. Maybe that's the new thing that people want. It's not so much like, oh, look at how nice my steering wheel is. Look at how beautiful the car looks. Maybe it's like, holy crap, I can go do all these things with my friends, family, with my partner or whatever, and in the privacy of my own car and the comfort of my own car. And it's going to be fantastic. I never have to worry about nothing. And that's how you live a life that inspires you. So it changes the equation, I believe. It changes the equation. We can't view it in the same way as we used to. Like people, like if you think back in the 1800s, what are things that people really valued from a, say, halo perspective? And are those things still true today? Like a horse carriage. Like, are people really that crazy about horse carriages anymore? Are they really that crazy about, I don't know, certain other things that don't exist today anymore that are technologically driven? I don't know. It's just an open-ended question. I think about that a lot. So who knows?
Yeah, it's difficult to tell these things, and because the shift is so unprecedented that you can't predict so many things. But it's interesting to think about these things, especially also with those categories
For
of
us
the
nerds,
cars.
it's fun.
Yeah, Yeah,
At
absolutely.
least for me, I shouldn't put words in your mouth.
No. I really I love to nerd out on Tesla and everything. Yeah, but it's crazy when you look at the perspective for how Tesla changed, and especially with FSD now. I mean, this is such a shift in how we utilize a car. It will be crazy, and
Yes.
and I mean, add 20 years, it's gonna be absolutely insane to I can even fathom if Tesla. Will they produce cars? Will they license things out? Will they
Yeah.
just have robotaxi fleets? Do we own cars? Of course, for the driving fun, maybe. I think this won't go away as fast. I think this will hold itself a long time. But I think it's comfortable to have a autopilot, and also that your car is always aware if something wants to crash you, it's gonna take over. I think this is such an important security feature.
Yes.
For the car, for the driving and everything. And you've talked about FSD and how it's priced in. I think this is also pretty interesting here. I also have a chart here where it's about the global Tesla FSD take rate. And you can see that in the third quarter of 2022, these are not actual numbers right now, so pretty old. I have to look where I can
Let me
find
see
some.
if Toy has the latest one. Go ahead and
Yeah,
speak, and I'm going to see if he's got the latest.
Maybe when you find it, you can just share your screen. I think this should be awesome. Yeah, but I think it's interesting to see that the FSD take rate was down in the end of 2022. So now with Tesla lowering the prices for FSD actually to $12,000 US, I think they have they're going to boost some of the sales again. But I would love to see if these numbers are still there, or if it had a bump up. I can assume it has a bump up, especially with those FSD announcements that Elon did again a few months ago. So maybe Farzad has something soon.
Yeah, no, I don't. It's
Yeah.
gonna take me a little bit, so maybe I'll just skip it for now. But
Okay.
I don't think it's changed too much from when we are right now.
Yeah.
The change in FSD is interesting because it kind of goes against to what it's the first time that it has gone against what the premise that Elon has said, which is, over time, full self-driving will become more and more valuable as a feature set gets better.
Yep.
And if you think about how much better FSD has gotten in the last few months, I would say it's gotten. I mean, it's probably the biggest improvements I've seen it have from a driving perspective. From my real world experience, I went from using it sometimes to using it literally all the time, to where a majority of my time spent in the driver's seat is not driving. Like a gigantic majority of my time in the driver's seat is not driving, which is like a something has changed, everybody, and nobody knows.
Yeah,
So that's a huge deal.
Sorry, I have to interrupt
No
there. Omar from Homer's Catalog, or Homer's Catalog on X, he also said like over 97% of his drives are with FSD now.
Yeah,
around that ballpark. I've had him on a few weeks ago, and yeah, he talked about this pretty thoroughly. And yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, I wish I could experience it here in Europe, actually. It's so sad that I can't, but next year for X Takeover, I'm going to come to the US. I've decided, and then I'm going to meet up finally. I have to do it then.
Great.
I have to do it then. And then I'm going to test out FSD. I'm going to rent out a car, and I'm going to rent out the Cybertruck, actually.
Great.
It's going to be awesome.
Let's make it happen. It happen.
Absolutely.
But my broader point is that, FSD has gotten significantly better, but the price has gone down. So I think what's happening, if I were to guess, is with the Q3 and Q4, it's 12,000 now. It used to be 15, and they kept it at $200 a month, I believe, for the monthly subscription.
Yeah.
So I think what's happening is that for Q3 and Q4, the company's probably looking to shore up a little bit of their margin impact from switching over their production line to Highland, which is going to cause a little bit of a profit hit because their Model 3 sales won't be as great. In addition to wanting to get this software in more hands, or at the very least, they're trying to figure out the price elasticity, which is basically how much could price dictate how much people want a car, like how the higher the price, the less people want the car. The lower the price, the more people want the car. But they want to see, if I drop price by X amount, this many people will get the car. So they're trying to figure out the math of what that is. And so that could be this. That could be, hey, like if we drop it from 15 to 12, maybe we're getting 7% of the fleet is buying FSD at 15. But if we drop it to 12, maybe 15% of the fleet gets FSD. And if you go from 7% of the fleet spending $0 on a product that's going to be 100% margin to 7% of people on a product that's going to be 100% margin, you've just now unlocked $12,000 worth of 7% of your fleet buying the software where nobody would have purchased the software previously, you know? Like, and this is a pretty, I think this is a signal more than anything. Like it goes against what Elon is saying, that the software will increase over time. I still think this is a short-term change. I think this over time, as it's obvious what self-driving means for a car, prices will increase. But to me, this is a signal that says Tesla's getting really comfortable, especially with them dropping the coming soon label for some of the features they had on full self-driving.
Yeah.
It's becoming very clear that Tesla's becoming very confident in the ability of the software. And I live this every day. I can testify to how good the software is getting, to where they want to increase the number of people that get their hands on the software so that they can either really start sending a message to people that say, hey guys, like, come on, what are you guys waiting for? It's coming, right?
Yeah.
Or they really need to gain access to interventions for data sets in more parts of the country that are going to allow their full self-driving AI stack that they have now with version 12 to solve self-driving for them, which is yet another crazy thing that has happened now, is that humans aren't solving FSD anymore. It's an AI solving FSD, which is like, that's freaking crazy. So this could be tied to that as well.
Absolutely. And the jump to FSD 12, I'm still pretty shocked actually how few people
completely under the radar.
Really didn't realize what was happening there. I think it was, but it's funny because it was such a crappy live stream that Elon did there, and he just announced the most
crappy
craziest,
is a nice way of putting it.
yeah. I mean, it was absolutely horrible.
It was great.
They should have.
The commentary was phenomenal.
Yeah,
like,
the commentary was
poor.
Yeah,
the commentary was unbelievable.
They should just take AI driver for their tests and just put this guy in, prepare the car, and then do this. But
anybody, he should just give the camera to Ashok next, like next to him, and just be like, can you just hold the camera?
yeah. But it was pretty good, and I think it's so funny that actually this kind of video was put out there, and nobody get it because what's that crappy video, and I don't know what's it about and everything. I mean, now the car really learns by itself, so they cracked it actually, and now we see it, and it's gonna train and train and train. And it's so funny that people said, oh no, it's not, FSD 12 isn't supported by hardware 4, I'm gonna cancel my order. 3 days later they announced FSD 12 will be working at, or they already did it with hardware 4.
They're starting with hardware 3.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean, sorry, FSD, no, 11.4 is on hardware 4.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, like this. And yeah, exactly. Yes. And but FSD 12 as well will run on every system as well. Yes. So correct. As far as I'm informed. Okay, good. Good to have this confirmation. Thank you.
There is a little bit of a gap, like the hardware 4's, like hardware 3 will be slightly ahead of hardware 4 for about 6 months, is what the guidance is. So it will take about 6 months for both
to align again,
stacks to have the same, and then over time hardware 4 will have an advantage, and I don't know exactly where. Maybe it's like processing power or something that will allow it to maybe be safer in the extremes, is what that's how I'm interpreting hardware 4 to be better than hardware 3. Okay. But both should be significantly safer than a human, which is the guidance that the company has given.
Yeah, and it's pretty funny that the car learns now from the driver, and we had stop gate again, how can you call it? Tesla stopgate doesn't work, but you know what I mean. It's like, oh
No,
God, it
I don't know
doesn't
what you
stop
mean.
at the stop signs. That's
Oh.
why, because it learns from humans, and humans don't stop at the stop sign, really much. So not to a full stop, but I think they can train it as well. And now also the simulation is very important. And don't forget, Tesla is building a supercomputer. Dojo, it's going to be more and more capable. They order every graphic card they can get their hands on again. And it's going to be pretty interesting how fast the development, now the AI is loose, more or less. And now it starts to run. And at first it can be a little bit janky again, but now they shifted. They cracked the thing. And what you have to keep in mind, if you have something more or less hard-coded with some AI sprinkled in there, that's fine. But the processing power of the computer has to be way bigger. But with the AI things, the lines of code that are actually run in the car are pretty low. That's why the processing power of the car is freed up to process this even further. So it's this is really big news. FSD 12 is absolutely astonishing, and it's giant. And it's funny that we're going to see it. I mean, we are pretty far ahead anyway with our predictions and everything. I realized that now, doing this for over a year now, that mainstream media has no clue. It's so ridiculous. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, I mean, I can tell you what's become extremely obvious to me in the last year or so, of really, especially as I've taken this content creation stuff a little bit more seriously and turned into to what I do. You know, it went from a hobby to something that I think it requires my full attention. What's become very obvious is that mainstream media, and say Wall Street in general, none of this is financial advice, I want to be clear, is everybody that doesn't follow any space closely, be it Tesla or whatever you want to cover, those of us that are really in the weeds, especially for companies that do have that secret sauce, like in this case, I would argue Tesla has that secret sauce, which is the combination of technology, engineering, leadership, has a lot going for it. All these things that seem obvious to the small number of people that follow this very closely will not really be captured. The rest of the population will not really understand it until it happens. It's very hard to convey and try to put within context what is going on, unless people have like a year or 3 years worth of context built into their head. So when somebody's describing something that's happening or something's being shown that is happening, all the context that allows somebody to build a foundation for that light bulb to go off to say, holy crap, this is a huge deal, doesn't exist. And that's where people that follow a story like Tesla very closely, they have an outsized advantage to understand some of these breakthroughs a little bit earlier. Now, I'm not saying that it's 100% guaranteed that's going to come to fruition, but in the likelihood that it does, the people that are not following this closely will be surprised by the development once it happens, versus everybody else that's followed this closely will be like, well, damn, we've been waiting for 5 years, about freaking time. And there's going to be a huge gap, right, in how people will feel. And then you think back to, you know, when Tesla became consistently profitable at the end of 2019, Model Y became best-selling car in the world, Tesla started breaking records left and right, and the stock market went absolutely bananas with Tesla. Like the stock market and Wall Street were all acting very surprised, like in shock, like, wow, this is crazy. Can't believe this happened.
We're like,
yeah. But everybody who followed it closely was like, well, come on. Like, we've been trying to tell you for God knows how many years. The same thing with FSD. And FSD to a greater degree, because Elon himself has been hyping this up more than usual for the last 5 years. So, but I just want to contextualize it, because I think that's an important thing to think through, you know. And it's not that people are stupid. It's not that people are not paying attention. It's not that people are not, they're not smart enough to realize it. It's none of that. Is that just the nature of most of the people with anything that you are into? Most people are not into the thing that you're into. And so without that time to build a foundation, it's going to be very hard to realize some of these broader things that are happening.
Yeah, totally. Because people have also lives and
Yes.
different interests,
We're
and
not nerds
it's
like
hard
we
to
are.
follow. Yeah, it's hard to follow. I mean, we devote so much of our
They're not
time
losers
with
like
with
us.
this. Yeah. Yeah, but there are a lot of those kind of people. That's why your channel is doing so great. So congratulations!
There's a lot
on
of
that,
losers
by the way.
out there.
No. Please, audience, don't get
I'm just
your
joking around. I think
pitchforks out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully your European audience can understand my humor. I hope.
Yeah, they
I'm sure
can because it's more American. We have a pretty international viewership, but mostly
Right.
Americans watch my content as well. But
Cool.
yeah, but the Europeans get your
I'm joking.
humor, of course.
I'm joking
Yeah.
around, everybody. I'm joking
This
around.
was a joke. To all the Germans, please, this was a joke. This was not 100% correct. Thank
There
you.
you go. There you go.
Yeah, talking about Germany, I just want to jump into this 1 second because now we have to look at what the competition is doing. And in the International Automotive Fair, the IAA in Munich, it is right now. And yeah, Mercedes announced something. It's more or less a design concept. It's a concept car.
Okay.
But I just wanted to put it out there to see what Mercedes is putting their resources towards again, like Audi also does that. They had great concepts, of course, and Audi did even a better job, I think, than Mercedes. I think it looks horrible. I don't really like this RGB lighting gaming PCs. That's why I don't like these kind of cars anymore. And yeah, it's but please, your opinion on this.
That
Yeah.
data.
The range, I'm not sure about the range, but I think it was like somewhere up there of 600 kilometers, like 500 miles around that range or something. And one interesting thing is that the reviewer also said it's going to be again for internal combustion engine and EV.
No, so they're lost already.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah,
They're
I
lost
just
already.
wanted to put that out there because that's absolutely crazy again. BMW does the same strategy. I don't get it. Of course, we can't compete. It's interesting what Mercedes is doing now with the Chinese competitors because they are partnering with Geely on the Smart One, for example, and also for newer models of the Mercedes. So this is pretty
Which means
hard.
They can't do it themselves.
Exactly, and
yeah,
you have to produce your batteries. You have to do everything in that direction to really be successful. But yeah, I just wanted to show you this, and maybe you have some thoughts.
I mean, it's a bummer. It's a bummer that's both for internal combustion and electric vehicles, because what that means is that you have to design the platform for a obsolete drivetrain mode, which is a internal combustion engine, which means you're going to miss out on a ton of the benefits you get from not having that from a cost perspective and a packaging perspective. Like
frunk,
your car becomes, exactly. They probably won't.
Mercedes
have a frunk,
doesn't have a
frunk.
frunk.
And crazy. That's crazy.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's a bummer. I wouldn't expect this car to sell really well in the EV format whatsoever. It may sell well in the internal combustion format. People still want that. But I do not take that as a serious player in the EV. And it's so crazy to me that car companies are still coming out with these platforms that are shared between gas cars and EVs in 2023, going into 2024. They don't get it. Some of these players don't get it, and it's very unfortunate. But we'll see. I cross my fingers for Mercedes. But if this is what their plan is for the rest of their EV lineup, they're not going to be around for much longer, in my opinion.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I think. Unfortunately, I also think this way BMW also does the same strategy. But yeah, I know that you have to jump. So far as we have to stop the episode here, sadly. But I always enjoy the conversation. And so far as that, maybe you have to say something to the audience for the end. What you want to pitch or plug. You got to check out Farzad. Oh, but all my followers are your followers, of course. I'm just I'm eating up the breadcrumbs from your channel and try to get.
Come on, man.
I'm basically
really
just a
copycat
channel.
No way. No.
No,
You do a
that's
great
just
job.
no.
You
just
give
kidding.
very unique insights. I think your production is I really enjoy your production. I think your stuff always looks great, sounds great.
Thanks.
You cover great information. No, just thank you so much for having me on. Thank you to your audience for stopping in and listening to two Tesla nerds talk about Tesla and EVs. It's always fun. Yeah, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. If you guys want to check me out, Farzad Mesbahi on YouTube, at Farzunos on X/Twitter. And yeah, I look forward to the next time we chat. Thank you, man.
All right. Thank you very much, Farzad. And now there's only one last thing we have to say now, and that's goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Wasn't this episode awesome? Let's accelerate the pace of innovation by subscribing to Tesla Fix. It is my absolute favorite channel on the whole interwebs.